Lakeland Public Television's Common Ground is brought to you by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.
I have been described as a jack of all trades, and that's not unfair. And so it has taken me a very, very long time to start to think of myself as an artist. I always just did things for a purpose. And when I started working in theater and designing and building sets, that was very much the same kind of thing. How do I find something here that I can make look like something else that will do for whatever requirements this show needs, that will please the director and the audience will know what we're doing, but also looks kind of cool and neat. And you know, I did that for years before I really realized there was art involved in that. And it was when other people began calling me an artist that I kind of went, oops, well, yeah, maybe, I guess that works. And I started doing beadwork for the same reason and found myself absolutely fascinated with the colors of beads and the history of them and the fact that I have traded things I have made for old beads that are 200 or 300 years old that were made as trade beads and are still being traded all over the world, and that's just really cool. And so I set up at craft shows and started selling the different jewelry I've made. And I've been doing that for years, and it's fun because I like meeting people, and it's always just interesting being at these events. But I began finally to use the same materials to make other things than jewelry. And the first thing I really started making was the Christmas trees. And they have been a lot of fun. And I did win an award with them, and that made me feel quite happy about the whole thing. And I thought, okay. This is just a much larger expansion of the same idea. This is being made for Old Wadena Park as part of a public art grant. The more little detail I put in there, the more fun people have going, ooh, look at that, ooh, look, because they find, it takes them a while to find these little things. As much as I can, I use beads because if I've decided to use beads as a medium, I want to use as many beads as possible. I made clover for my rabbit to eat, and daisies. And these actually will go in a bend of the river because these are supposed to represent marsh marigolds. And they will look much more like it when I have them in the right setting. This is supposed to be fun. This isn't an exact deal. It is not going to follow the actual terrain of the park. It will be bits that are put together. You know, I'll put turtles on a log somewhere in the river. All the things in the pie plate are going to be in the river because I am making a river that will cut across one end of this. I'll have the bog at the other end. All this stuff, including this little turtle and frog, which I'll tuck in there somewhere, go in the bog. And we wanted to use that to teach about wetlands. And we've been, when I say we, I'm talking about the Old Wadena Society, of which I am a member. We've been constructing a bog walk out on this wetland for several years now, doing it little by little as we can afford it. And I wanted to, because it's in a remote area of the park, I wanted to incorporate it into this, to try and encourage people, at least let people know about it and encourage them to go down and visit it. So I'm building a bog with a tile bead walk out onto it as part of this landscape. The model I built was totally flat because I did it in a big hurry. This will actually, I've got more foam here and some foam glue. And I'm going to take this out on the front porch and start carving. And I will carve the river down, and I will carve the bog down, but then I will build some hills up, and I'll have a bank and hills. None of these things will be as crowded as they are. They'll be scattered out. And what I really have needed tons of are piles of brush to fill in underneath the trees. Almost everything here has been made the same way by just twisting beads on wire in little loops. The difference comes, do you use big loops, do you use little loops, do you use small beads, do you use big beads, what colors do you use, how long do you make the stems? But the technique is not much different. And I never really know when I start things how to do it. It would be nice if I did, but I don't. I don't have a formula. I don't use a formula. I just start. I'll make more grass out of embroidery thread. I started a little corner last night. I kind of cut this out because there's some sedge grass around the edge of the bog. And then there's some cattails, and then as you get higher into it, it actually gets drier and there's different kinds of brush. But I wanted some sedge grass just around the edge. So I'll actually just cut out a little strip once I get it embroidered, and that will get glued down into the edge of the bog. I've had to do research for this because I know how to do everything with the beads. I had to do some research to find out what to do to make a river. And I have ended up with a product I haven't really used in jewelry making, but it's made for jewelry, called ice resin. And it's a two-part epoxy resin, jewelry grade, very clear, can be colored with oil paint, will not yellow over time. And I had to get huge amounts of it because normally it's used in very small applications, and I'm going to build an entire river out of it. But it lets me put a sand base in my riverbed and scatter rocks along it and put frogs and fish actually in the river. And I find this really exciting and full of possibilities because I can actually do this indoors or outdoors for almost any place in the country. I might have a little bit of trouble trying to make an acacia cactus. I've been thinking about how I would do that. But you know, I can find a way to make cool little settings with beads, and it's really a lot more fun than making bracelets and necklaces. I just love this. This is built purely for fun. And my hope is, because you know, some people will never look at it. Nobody likes every kind of art. But people have gone quite silly over the model. They've really spent a lot of time going, "Ooh, look, you see that? Oh, look, you know, oh, I found a bird's nest." Well, if I do a lot of this and put a lot of animals and little things in here for people to find, I hope it will encourage them to look at the real thing more carefully, or at least to notice when they're walking down a path that there's a wildflower next to it. Because I think one of the things that art does is make people notice the life around them in a different way.
If you enjoyed this segment of Lakeland Public Television's Common Ground, consider making a contribution at lptv.org.